Welcome to a demonstration of the Cwejman SM-1 synthesizer module. This is going to be a no, not that long, but it is going to be quite long. So I'm going to split it up into, a sound demonstration, demo, and maybe some patch ideas after that, because it's just so deep. So much going on, so many things you can do. So I thought I'd do this first, put this one up, because there's a few people out there that are asking for the demonstration of the module itself. People want to know, what does it sound like? What does it do? Well, what does it do? It's a voice module. It's a synthesizer in your Euro rack. 56 HP, dual oscillator, dual envelope, dual LFO, multi-mode filter, switchable, with switchable waveforms on the oscillators. Now, this module is internally wired, so you can get sound without anything plugged in. We're listening to the multi-mode filter out. You also have a VCA out that is triggered by the second envelope. So I suppose let's pop to it, shall we? We're listening to this square wave output of Oscillator 1. Oscillator 1 level is up, low pass filter is fully open, and we're listening to the output of that. So let's start at the start, shall we? We have a master section. We have a transpose. Seven octaves of range. 3 up and 3 down. We have a glide function, and we have our 2 LFOs. And we have tune tracking. So let's stick a 1 volt per octave in our tune input. And I'll show you what this is all about. So glide's glide. It's very musical, about 6. It stays that way for quite a while, but it can, at 10, get all warbly. I assume that's the sample or hold on the noise, or the noise internally that's it's being mixed with. I don't know. I'm not a DIY guy. I don't put these guys together. I just play with them like my toys. The old adult Lego. Okay, so that's the glide. Transpose, as I just demonstrated. Now, the tune tracking is basically these 3 are linked to the tune input. So if I turn them off, well, I'll turn oscillator 1 off, it drones. Okay? And this transpose will have no effect for oscillator 1 or 2. Well, if it's switched up. Okay, same deal with oscillator 2. If I just, alright, and that goes for LFO 1 as well. So if I actually, LFO 1 is down, so if we have an output here for LFO 1 and LFO 2, so if I turn the multi-mode filter output down and the LFO output up. Let's have a look at that. There it is. Okay. So LFO1 can track through the tune input when you have the tune tracking on, or it can be a free running LFO if it's off. Now while we're here, LFO1 and LFO2 are exactly the same except for this input for the tune tracking. So we got square. So it's a different sound. Yeah. Mainly because it's probably going through the filter, yeah? Yeah, that'd be why, Adrian. Logical. Yeah. I'll turn that off. Yeah, so, square. Reverse or negative saw. Positive saw. Right. Angle. Sine wave. Unquantized. Random. Which mostly hangs around the negative. It wobbles a bit up and down, but a bit positive. Mostly in the negative though, you can see. And finally, there's a sample and hold in here. I'll show you, shall I? Direction. There it is. Sample and hold. Okay, so this is the same for LFO1 and LFO2. Now you can also track these guys, so I'll come in through the rate. Through the LFO rate. That's LFO1. And if I come through LFO2, exactly the same. Okay. Of course, you can use that with a clock. Turn that off. Hello. Sorry, speaking to myself there. Always best to, yeah. So there you go. There's the clock resetting the LFO. Usual story. Or you can use it as async for the LFO. All right. They're the 4 inputs. They're the LFOs. Usual stuff. Now I'll just note that I'll let you know now while we're here. I'll just turn this off. Now these LFOs are hardwired to various places around the module. Down here is an indication. As you can see, the FM2 input, it has LFO1 below. So FM2 here is hardwired to LFO1. So if I give the multimode filter a bit of volume and go back, there you go. All right. And it is also hardwired to the pulse width modulation. So that's hardwired various places around the module. LFO2 is to pulse width modulation of 2. They're both hardwired, although it doesn't highlight it because it's not a secondary, it's a main function, to the cutoff one, left LFO1, right LFO2. The last thing on the master section is the filter cutoff tracking. Now, for the filter cutoff tracking to work, you need an oscillator in self-resonance mode. You need to put it into self-resonance. So it will track 1 volt per octave. So if we stick, like as per tune tracking, filter cutoff tracking, same deal. That's what filter cutoff tracking is all about. Now, if I switch this up, it's not in self-resonance mode anymore. Okay, you mostly only get some resonance when you stick an oscillator, a sound through it. It will resonate when there's a sound coming through, not on its own. Okay? Lesson number 1. But you can, if you like. Oh, sweet. Love it. Love it. Very handy. Oh, sorry, I'll stop playing around. This is a demonstration, Adrian. Stop having fun. Alright, so that's the master section. Very handy, very well thought out. Yeah, can do all sorts of things with the various switches and wirings throughout the module. Right, so let's move on to the oscillator, shall we? Now, these two oscillators are identical aside from a couple of things. The main two things are that oscillator 1 has noise. Let me turn that off. There it is, some noise. Let me turn that up so you can hear it. Some very nice noise. I'm getting carried away again. An oscillator 2 at the same setting in the midpoint here is ring modulation. We'll get into that in a moment. That's the main two differences besides the hard wiring down here, where frequency modulation 1 is hardwired to 1, 2 to 2, well, 1 to 1 to 2 on 2, and 1 to 1 on 1. Yes, yes. And as explained before, the LFOs are hardwired to FM2 and pulse width modulation, and FM2 is actually hardwired to VCO1, but we'll get into that later as well. But pulse width modulation is LFO2. And they are the differences. Well, the final difference, I suppose, is that this is the master and this is the slave, which can be synced, which can create new waveforms. We'll get into that in a moment as well. So let's start at the start, shall we? Oscillator 1, fully open, no resonance, square wave. All right. Now, I'm cheating a bit. I've had a bit of effects on. I'll turn them off. There you go. I put them on the sound demonstration because don't we all use effects? And if you don't, use effects. But the raw sound is always good to hear when on the module demonstration. So, alright, square wave, saw wave, saw and square. I don't know the technical term, but it's halfway through the saw. Triangle saw. Triangle. Fine. Now, let's go back, well, and the noise, of course, as was demonstrated. Now this square wave, like every square wave, in most modules, can be pulse width modulated. So the difference between this and most others is there's a semi-exponential and I think it's a linear. Give me a second. Yes, I was correct. It's a linear and a semi-exponential. Pulse width modulation. Now let me demonstrate that. We are in semi-exponential. Why? Because we're only folding the positive side, one positive side of the square wave. When we go to linear, we go through and we are pulse width modulating positively and negatively. Now I had a quick look through most of my I have quite a few VCOs sitting around. The live wire audio frequency generator probably comes the closest to this, but it is unique. It is very unique in this way. I don't even think my VCO 2RM Cwejman module does this either. So I'll have to double check that though, but I'm pretty sure that it doesn't. So it's unique to this module. I don't know if there's others out there. Tell me in the comments. That's the first time I've ever said that. So now what's also unique is we can, if I flick back down to semi-exponential, is this also works on the saw. Let's get this modulating, shall we? LFO1 hardwired. Sorry. So yes, it does that on the saw with the square and the try with the square. So all three will pulse width modulate. I'll pump it up a bit, shall I? Just the square wave gets so loud. Alright. So Adrian, what happens when you fold it linearly? Oh, that happens. That was a saw wave. What's that? It's lovely, is what it is. That's the saw square. That's the saw tri. Some beautiful waveforms there. That one actually seems quite familiar. Close to the audio frequency generator. Although that is a unique module in itself. It's had enough demos. Doesn't need me to do a demo of it. Okay, so basically, besides the noise, these two are exactly the same. What I demonstrated there can also be done on this second oscillator. All right. I've detuned that. Sorry. Okay, same deal. Yeah. Same. Now, what gets interesting is when you sync them. We can make ourselves all manner of waveforms. Okay, so that's when you can get quite creative. See, it clips quite readily, even without the distortion. Although the distortion is soft, we'll get into that. Flattens it out a bit. It's like it compresses it. So you can get quite creative there with synced or unsynced. Detuned. Alright, I won't spend too much more time on that, you get the idea. But what I will show you before we move on, just so you know, let's go back to our standard. Turn that down a bit again. Oh, I can turn it down here, can I? So FM1, you can stick proper octave. Now this is in positive, this little switch here is positive and negative. A bit silly having it negative. You can if you want, but you can stick something else in there and have it negative. Same with FM2, can also track 1 volt per octave. You also have inputs for the pulse width modulation level and a sync input if you want. I think it's a hard sync, I'm not 100% sure. Okay, same on both modules. Now, whoop. So what haven't I shown you? What haven't I shown you is what I promised to show you before, and that was the ring modulation. I like to see this waveform spread out a bit. Always looks a bit better. See what's going on. Now, yeah, nice. I mean, what's to say? It's ring modulation. Have a ball with it. And what you can do with it is this. I'll close that up a bit. So we have wave folding. Through oscillator 1, coming through frequency modulator 2, coming through the pitch. And when you get into ring modulation mode, it will fold. Yeah, it's wonderful. Huh. So where's the sweet spot? Yeah, we get the idea. It's ring modulation with wave folding. Lovely. Sounds gorgeous. Don't know any other module that can do this on its own. Therefore, but this is a huge module. You know, you can patch it up. You can do that. Just look at what he's done here, and then you can patch it yourself. It's a good idea. That's the two oscillators in a nutshell. Oh, I better not forget. You can, because this is basically ring modulating as it is indicated here, oscillator 1 with oscillator 2. But you can put in an external audio and use that. So I've got a sine wave coming in from Radical Frequencies dual precision VCO. Yeah. We can use that. If you switch it down, oscillator will ring with external audio. It's triangle, square. Squeaky. Okay, that's the last thing you can do to those oscillators. And it's a lot of fun. We'll go back to the square wave on oscillator 1. All right, we'll move on to the multi-mode filter. Okay, shall we go through the modes first? We've got low and high up the top there. So -12 and -24 dB per octave with the slopes. 2 is 12 and 4 is 24. For the band pass, it's -6 and -12. After the band pass, we have 3 types of dual band pass that have upper and lower peaks. The first one, the peaks are at the same level. Second one, peak lower, peak high. Peak low first, peak high, and then the opposite way around. Peak high, peak low. And finally, we have a notch. If you're in 2-pole mode, it's a single notch, and if you're in 4-pole mode, it's a double notch. And these double notches and the dual bands work with the spacing to space out those bands, which we'll demonstrate in a moment. So they're the modes. So we'll start in low pass, which you've been hearing. The resonance is just not self-resonance, basic resonance. We'll do this slowly because it does step. And resonating. Otherwise it's very smooth, but whether it's in self or not, the resonance steps can lead to some interesting sounds. Okay, so that's low. I'll put it right into high. So there is a substantial difference between them. You can change the waveform with this. Now we're still in the square mode here, right? So if I go back to the cutoff, open the cutoff right up with on the low pass filter, we get a typical square wave. But if I change that to the high pass, it doesn't fully open to a full square wave. It triangulates it a bit. Okay. Anyway, low. It's the high. Go to band. So this is -6, -6. So it's a little bit lighter. It's not as loud. You usually have to push it a bit. Is that stepping again? And then we'll go to our first dual peak. And we're completely cut off here, and I'll put the resonance 3/4. I'll put the spacing all the way down and open it up. That's a bit better. So obviously here the peaks are very close together, and as we open it up, they move apart. So it's opening the higher and lower, opening the higher and lower bits. It doesn't have massive effect when there's no resonance, but you know, it always sounds better with a little bit of resonance with these dual peaks. And lastly, we have the notch. So there's the single. Obviously, the higher you have the peak, the less of the notch, and dual. is the modes. All right, now I demonstrated self-oscillation, which was the first switch. Okay. So you can obviously have that on when you're, you basically got three sounds, you got three oscillators, you got one there, one there, one there, and you can even have a fourth if you wanted through the LFO, and a fifth, technically, through LFO. You could technically have five. I probably wouldn't do that, but have at it if you want five going all at once. Yeah. So the next, well, you know what the 2-pole and 4-pole was doing. I demonstrated that. Explain that, how it's different between all the different modes of the filters. So I suppose I really should explain what the SAT1 and SAT2 is. So we have SAT1 is a soft. I read it somewhere and I wrote it down. Maho tells us this is a symmetrical soft peak, and saturation 2 is a hard asymmetrical tube type. So let's listen to them. I will note that you get a lot more. Let's plug it in, Adrian. If you get a lot more from plugging something in and have it going, and we'll turn that down a bit. Yeah, that's our soft. Off. Soft. It compresses the waveform and it drags those peaks, softens them in, dirties them up a little bit, but softens them in. Yeah? So it sounds distorted, mildly, but it's actually not. There goes that wave folding again. Hard is having the opposite effect. It's like dragging those peaks out to those dirty areas. Stop it somewhere good and turn it off. It's a massive difference. See how that softens it up a bit? Let's go to hard. Tell me they're not going to come in handy. Oh, they have come in handy. Alright. Oh, I won't play around. I won't play around too much with those. You get the idea. Once again, I'm going to stop saying it. It's going to be my freaking catchphrase. And who wants a catchphrase? Not me. Right, so let's move on. Cutoff Modulation CVs. So we have 3. 1, 2, 3, as you see there. 1, 2, 3. So 2, as is explained here, is bipolar. Is now you can't. These are hardwired. You can't plug anything into them. They are hardwired to ADSR1 and ADSR2. Only cutoff 1 can have an external cutoff input, which I'll demonstrate in a moment. I'll find a patch cable. I'm going to flick it to external cutoff. Okay. Lovely. All right. And if you take that out, well, you don't have to take that out. You can leave that in if you wanted to. And you can use LFO 2. If you switch down and go to the right. So these are both, they're positive on the right and positive on the left. Put the T on the end of your word, Adrian. So on the right was oscillator 2, on the left is oscillator 1. Well, sorry. It is oscillator 1, but if you flick it up. Down is LFO 1. So cutoff 1 can be very flexible. You switch it mid-live stream, live act, mid-playing. It's variations on your sounds. Now, finally to the envelopes. So let's stick in. Now, you put a trigger or a gate into gate 1, it will trigger gate 2. If you trigger gate 2, it will only trigger gate 2. Okay? So trigger gate 1. Now, so the first envelope really is only for modulation. So because if how can I demonstrate this? I can demonstrate this by sticking that gate into there and then putting a gate high into here, because this is in loop mode. Let me take that out so you get an idea. Okay. Now I'm going to use so if you put a gate high into gate 1, or gate 2 for that matter, but gate high and gate 1 in this instance, you put it into loop, the sustain into loop mode all the way off, switch down a loop, and you will get an attack decay loop. Alright, now I'm modulating this, as you can see here, with it's also hardwired to FM1 on oscillator 1, but mainly to cutoff 2 for the multi-mode filter. Now, you can use this. It has got you can pretty much put it where you want to. If you want, you can take it out of the output here, ADSR 1 and 2. But as far as hard wiring is concerned, the envelope will have no effect on the VCA. So if I turn the multi-mode filter off, and this is a tracking for the VCA, it's doing nothing. Turn the VCA up, I get nada. I have to put a gate into, I have to trigger the second envelope, basically. Whether it's through gate 1 or gate 2, has to trigger the VCA, which is the voice output on this module. We have linear and exponential. And this can loop much like envelope 1. Now these have their own individual outputs as well for attack, decay, sustain and release, and as inputs. Inputs, they do have their own outputs, they do, but they also have their own inputs on the individual attack, decay, sustain and release, if you so choose to use them. I like to use sustain a lot. Yes, so I think I've pretty much explained it. And one thing that shall we experiment? Shall you and I learn something? Try to, because I'm still a little bit confused about amp. Let's switch this to amp. And let's put an envelope into amp. Yes. Yep. I guessed. See how it says amp here? Yeah, so that's probably just a velocity until you switch this down to amp. So we're just listening to the VCA here. It does have quite an impact. Let me close that envelope a bit. Yeah, it does, doesn't it? How's that? We both learned something today. It's the one thing that I hadn't studied before doing this demo. I'm glad I figured it out. And we both learned something. That's just taking it to another level. Let's mix it with the multi-mode filter. This actually wanted to demonstrate this. So that oscillator 1 for the multi-mode filter cutoff modulation, you can't really hear it when you're just having a drone, but it's times like these when you get a lot of modulation going. There's some real effect. I mean, technically you can put LFO2 into audio, right? Do that. makes a difference, doesn't it? Let's give it a bit of saturation before I finish off, eh? That's softened it up a bit. Oh. This is all low pass filter, by the way. Let's go high. Bit of effects never hurt anybody. Yeah, I'm getting carried away here. Sorry about that. I'll give you a demonstration of the sound before I close off. I will come back with another sound demonstration. So I hope you enjoyed this demonstration. If you got any questions, just let me know in the comments. I will try to answer them as soon as I can. And thanks Wowa, and thanks Maho for the continued manufacture of these Cwejman modules. You're doing a wonderful service to the modular community. What more can I say? And a quick shout out for Audio Parasites data face cover. As you can see, it's black. Everything in Audio Parasites is black. Really easy cover. You just whack it over the top and you're done. Well, you do have to unscrew a few things, but you don't have to take the faceplate off, because you can't take the faceplate off. Well, you shouldn't anyway. Don't do that. Do not take the faceplate off. This is a cover. You put it over the top, then you screw it back on. Okay? Thanks. So yeah, thanks to D for sending that in, legend. I'll link it in the description. So take care of everybody. Stay safe. And remember to have fun, and happy wiggling.